instant. Anatomy all I see, and the lights get out. And the lights get out. And the lights get.
My name is Starlini, and this is going to be a voiceover because, long story short, my computer is still fucking with me. Okay. I just remember the laws and like all the changes that have been on this platform, so I might bleep that part out. Excuse me. Let me start over. Good evening, everyone. Instead of going into the details of what's wrong with my computer, I will just say that I am like so dedicated to finishing what I started that I'm just gonna do a bunch of voiceovers from now on. If you get tired of looking at the stars, get up, go wash your dishes, go wash your behind, go wash your house, go do something productive, go do something active. Listen to me, escúchame while you do what you want to do. If you get tired of looking at stars or whatever else I decide to put on the screen. But yeah, as I said, I'm very dedicated to finishing what I started. So in this video, I'm going to be responding to someone who wrote me. I'm not going to say the person's name or anything. But she says, "Hey Starlini, my name's blank, and I've been really drawn to the idea of emancipation, and I'm so sorry I can't buy your book because I'm a minor and my situation otherwise. I would and read it. Wait, let me back up. That was supposed to be a period. And I'm so sorry I can't buy your book because I'm a minor and my situation. Otherwise, I would, and I'd read it for information," I think is what she's trying to say. She continues with, "I'm from Florida and currently reside in Florida. I'm currently 15 and am turning 16 blank and am currently in my junior year of high school. I wanted to ask you a few questions because I know you were emancipated in Florida according to your story time video, so I think you would be able to help me the most at this moment in time. Now, I would wait until I finish reading this to point out what I want to point out. However, I do just want to correct this. I did not get emancipated in Florida. I grew up in Florida. I'm from Miami, but I did not get emancipated there. So I'm sorry. I don't know where. I guess you said that was in my story time video, but I don't know. That's not true. My bad, girl. But you continue it, so I think you would be able to help me the most at this moment in time. I hope that I'm still able to help you." She continues with, "I'm hoping to begin the emancipation process in June 2020. I'm planning on moving in with a social worker who lives on my street and beginning my entry-level job in January and working 36 hours a week. My living situation is at home with an emotionally verbally abusive father and a mom who is decent but will not leave my dad. My parents are very reliable in saving up for my future or my mental health. Doctors that I need with my, let me start over. My parents are very reliable in saving up for my future or my mental health doctors that I need with my depression and anorexia. It's just a difficult situation and I can't live with them anymore, which is why I'm going to move out soon and pay a rent to the social worker I'll be living with. At these jobs with 30 to 36 hours a week working, I'll be earning about 1.15K a month or 1.15K a month, which isn't a lot, but I don't know what the court expects for me for the emancipation process. I wanted to ask you if you worked when you were going through the emancipation process. If so, where and how much were you making at the time? And did the court ask you or doubt your earnings? I'm just really nervous about the supporting yourself aspect of this. I also wanted to ask if you know the specific requirements for emancipation, as I can't seem to find any online. My reasons for wanting to leave home are my dad's emotional abuse and the trauma that came along with it, and not feeling comfortable with both my parents in control of me. It's very difficult living with them, and I cannot live like this or grow as a person like this, and I need to change how I live. I'm willing to work for this and buy a car with my earnings and live away from my parents, and am aware of the financial affairs that come along with being an adult so young. I'm really sorry for asking you and trying to be a quote unquote special case, but I can't go on like this and really need any amount of information I can get. Oh, first of all, you don't need to be sorry. Don't apologize. You have no reason to be sorry. I have learned in my time that you should not apologize for seeking what you deserve, which is your liberty, which is your freedom. There's no reason to apologize for that. People don't apologize for taking it from you, so you don't apologize for taking it back. First of all, um, but let me scroll up because you brought up so many things that I want to touch on and that you just made me think of. So and also I do want to say you are thinking a lot about what lies ahead, and you're considering um, your potential and how your current situation is impacting, the journey to your final destination. And I applaud you for being so introspective and for recognizing what's going on around you and feeling empowered enough or having the courage to pursue change, because deep down, like, there has to be something better. And I'm glad that you have that skill and that ability, because I think it's really unfortunate when you don't know that you're in a situation that's more detrimental than it is helpful. So shout out to you, girl. So let's start from the top. So you're hoping to get emancipated next summer, and in the first paragraph, I do have some questions. There are some things that I wouldn't say they're red flags, but my antenna like went straight up when I read about you moving in with your social worker, because I've had a social worker since I've been in foster care, and I was in foster care about a few years, or I don't know. Let me backtrack, because my mom told me one thing, but the DCFS report that I found recently tells me something different. I believe I was in foster care about 6 months. I was taken away in May, I believe. Okay, so um, I have been with a social worker since I've been in foster care very early on. Like, I have been put in front of a person and examined and what have you. And it's to my knowledge that your social worker has never been permitted, never been allowed to be close enough to you that you guys could have a relationship where the adult, the social worker, is inviting you to stay with them. Now, I understand that these kinds of uh, relationships, where when it's your supervisor, when it's someone who's like a mentor, someone you look for guidance, it gets tricky. I'm someone who moved in with the woman who was my boss, so I'm not judging when I ask questions about the social worker situation. The difference between your boss and your social worker typically is that your boss doesn't when you think of a boss, typically you think of that authority figure. You don't think of someone who is emotionally ready or available for you like your social worker is. So with your social worker, that's just someone who you're already going to be really vulnerable with. For you to then move in with that person, you're just putting all your cards in that person's hand. You're allowing yourself to be very, very vulnerable with this person, because this person knows you emotionally, and I imagine that you turn to this person for guidance and for comfort on an emotional level. And then by moving in with this person, you're adding to the plate by relying on this person when it comes to the physical realm, when it comes to getting your bills paid, having shelter. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I am saying that you got to be aware of how you are depending on a person, because if there's anything that I did wrong, or maybe I shouldn't look at it in terms of right or wrong, but I don't think it helped me that I went from depending on my parents to depending on my temporary legal guardian to depending on my friend's dad to, well, it's, I understand that while that's not exactly what I imagined, or while you don't exactly sign up to be dependent on someone, ideally people, not all of us, but some of us like to be able to depend on ourselves, but you end up in situations and you're fortunate enough sometimes to have people help you. So I wouldn't say that it was wrong to have my temporary legal guardian and whatever, all those other people in my life be who I depended on, but it came with consequences, They all of the people who I've depended on in that way have ultimately had more control and more say than I could at the time, because they were providing meals for me. They were providing my shelter at some point. In the beginning with my temporary legal guardian, she purchased stuff for me before like I got my checks from her, because she had been holding on to them and stuff. So it's like, and even in the beginning she also would buy me stuff, and it starts to make you feel comfortable, but you always have to remember in the back of your mind that this is not your, that ultimately, like, you need to be able to have a stake in a say in what's going for you. And if you're not paying any bills, if you're not putting in any work, if you're not doing anything to bring food and put it on the table at the end of the day, you don't really get to say anything. You don't really get any control. And it sounds like at your age, and I mean, given your letter to me about seeking help with emancipation, it seems that you want to be in control. It seems that you want to have some say in your life. And that brings me to the next thing, which is that you seem to have it down to the bone, like exactly how you want to go about doing this. And I don't know, if there's something that I've learned, is that nothing ever really goes according to plan. You really hope that it will. You sit there and you write it all out. I know I used to, because I have such a vivid imagination, and I really do believe that I speak things into existence. We all speak things into existence. I do, but I would take it a step further, and I would say I see things into existence long before they happen. I have a dream, I have a vision of some sort. Like, I see myself doing things or creating things or just having moments or experiences, and then poof, at some point you get there. And with your situation, I do believe that you could very well end up with a social worker, but with that, I would say that it could go left and it could go right, which is why you got to have multiple plans. You have to have multiple options. What if this person turns out to not be who you thought that they were, you know? What if you're not comfortable living with this person? Then where do you go? What if your parents say no? Do you run away to your social worker's house, and then that person's in a position where they could be potentially facing charges or what have you, if they allow them, if they open their doors to you despite their parents not wanting them to? You got to think about all those other things, just in case things don't go how you want them to, because I mean, for me, they haven't always. Going back to your letter and the questions that you posed, um, oh yes, and the job. I would say that before you leave, I would say secure that job. I believe that you said you're supposed to start in January, and yeah, January. I would definitely say establish security in your job so that you can start getting money in your pocket. Being able to pay your way helps you tremendously. And you said that what you would be earning isn't a lot, and that you don't know what the court expects for you. I can do quick Google search and see if I can find what I came across years ago when I was doing research on it, because I did come across the Florida laws and what have you. So if I can find that, I will put that in the description box just for you, child, okay? But yeah, congrats to you on your job. I really hope that it's all that you hope it is and want it to be and more, and that you establish some security with that, because just being able to put some money in your pocket will help you. For instance, when it comes to your phone, if you're paying your own phone bill now, the judge will really like to see that. If you have any money saved up, then the judge will really want to see that. I think it's pretty hard at your age to open a bank account without an adult signing on to it. I think. I don't know I don't know who your banker is or anything like that, but that's something to look into. Even if you don't open an account, because not everybody trusts, keeping their money in accounts and what have you. Some people definitely like to stuff it in their mattress and what have you, the old fashioned way. Whatever you want to do, girl, do what you gotta do. But put some money away. Put some money away. I don't know that the judge will ask you to announce how much you have saved up, but just knowing that you are mindful and when I don't know, financially aware, financially responsible, I think that that would really help your situation, regardless of what happens. If people can't control, if you have control of your finances or if you have a stake in that, then it helps you. So definitely secure a job no matter what. You say that you wanted to know if I was working during the emancipation process. So I worked for the woman that I lived with. Just a little refresher in case you didn't see my videos or read my poetry. Oh yeah, you didn't. And it's okay. um, I lived with my temporary legal guardian, and she, like I said, she was my boss primarily. So um back in 2014 in the summer, I met her and she started driving me to work and picking me up and taking me home, because my dad told me that I needed to find it. If I wanted to work, that I would need to find my own way to get there and back, basically. And I told my boss this, and I think, or not in that way, not in the beginning, but I started to get close to her. Long story short, I got into altercation with my mom, and I ended up living with, or asking my legal guardian, who had just dropped me off at the time, if she could come get me. And when I went to school the next day, they said that they could put me in a shelter and stuff, but she told me that I didn't have to and we could figure something out and I could just stay with her. That's how I ended up living with her, and I continued to work for her company. I worked at the summer ice rink concession stand, and then I worked in the wintertime at the, oh yeah, that didn't make any sense. I worked at the pool in the summertime, and I worked in the ice rink in the concession stand in the wintertime. And during the emancipation process, I did go to work in the wintertime sometime. However, since she was the one facilitating the process and she went to court with me that one day, I was able to get out of work, and she was able to just say, okay, you don't have to go, because it was her company and I was living with her. I feel like that was a really long explanation, but I hope that that makes sense for you. Um, and you said if you worked when you were going through the emancipation process. If so, where did you work and how much were you making at the time? You are bold. Where did I work? Well, I just told you that. How much was I making at the time? Pennies. I wasn't I wasn't making dollars and dollars and dollars, but um, I saved whatever I did make, and I mean my tips and everything. I saved it. I would deposit it, and I would wait. Once a year, I would go buy some clothes, and that was pretty much how I went about my money. I knew that I wanted to buy my MacBook Pro laptop, which I eventually did, and I knew that I wanted to buy a camera, which I eventually did. Like, I knew that I wanted to invest in myself, so I saved my money from the checks that I got from my boss slash legal guardian. And yeah, but I wasn't making very much. But for a girl, a sophomore and a junior in high school, like that definitely was something. You said that you're just really nervous about the supporting yourself aspect. Yeah, and it makes sense that you're nervous because that is the hardest part. And once you get that figured out, everything else, at least I would say, like, I'm about to turn 21 years old this Friday, and I realized, like, just learning how to take care of myself and getting those habits established will really help me alleviate a lot of the stress and the anxiety that I have about this thing called adulting, this thing called like actually taking charge of your life and standing up for something, or um, devoting yourself to something, as opposed to just merely being here and existing and, like, going through the motions and stuff like that. Like, it really does help if you get that supporting yourself aspect down, if you get stable, if you get secure in a few things, just get grounded and stuff. It really does help you ease some of that worry and that anxiety that a lot of us have. So I understand your nervousness, and if you have anxiety and stuff, I don't think that that's gonna go away. I think you're just gonna learn to live with it, as opposed to fighting it. There's a quote on my wall. If I can remember to, then I will put it on the screen right now, and because it's about your worries and how life is less about eliminating your troubles, eliminating your worries, and more so about growing with them. And I was like, you know what? That's real true. That's la verdad. So anyhow, you go on to say in your final paragraph that you wanted to ask if I know the specific requirements for emancipation because you can't find any online. I will put whatever I can find in the description box. You say that your reasons for wanting to leave, which are very, very important. Like, that is a key thing when you write your petition, or when you write your portion that the lawyers will put in your petition. The specific requirements for emancipation, or no, excuse me, moving on. Your reasons for wanting to leave are your dad's emotional abuse and the trauma that came along with it, and not feeling comfortable with your parents in control of me. Now, what someone who is maybe insensitive or maybe unaware of your situation, or how your anxiety and your depression affects you, what they might say after reading that or hearing that is that no teenager typically likes having their parents be in control of them. They could easily minimize that statement. So while I understand you're saying you don't want them having control of you, it's not, when you're painting that picture, when you're taking that stance, it's less about them. You got to present it in a way where it's not so much that you don't want them to be in control of you. You have to sort of prove or state why they are not fit to, and why it is more appropriate, and why it is more sensical for you to go out and be in control of yourself. That's really what the judge wants to know, because like I said, typically teenagers are like, I don't want anybody in control of me, like I think I could live my life, like, and all that kind of stuff. So and that's another thing, the whole like proving that you are in a position where you can take care of yourself. That is pretty much what the specific requirement is. That's ultimately what's going to help your case, what's going to help your situation. You have to write something to the judge that's going to make he or she, that person on the other side of the letter, feel for you, get to know you. And it's not so much oh, you like to play baseball and stuff. Is, what are you about? What does your life mean to you? And why do you believe now more than ever that you can take care of yourself, or that you at least have the strength and the momentum to? What have you gone through already? In what ways have you persevered? Those are important questions. If you can sort of put that into context, put that into terms in your letter, then that will really help the judge see you in a good light, and see that you have potential and that you are capable. Because nobody, I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, because, systems be corrupt. We'll speak at that now. But most people probably don't want the guilty conscience that comes with sending a child out into this world unprepared. You know what I mean? So a judge is not going to look at a 15 or just turned 16-year-old person or a just turned 17-year-old person, and say, oh yeah, like I think you can go out and take care of yourself. What would you do if you ended up being kicked out of your social worker's house? Where would you go? Do you have the skills? Are you resourceful in the sense that you would be able to get yourself in contact with somebody who knows somebody who can get you somewhere safe? Do you know to go to your city hall? Because as a citizen, as a resident, you are awarded certain, I shouldn't say awarded, but you deserve and you can be afforded certain resources from a local parish, a local pantry, just by being a resident, if you have those kinds of things in your town. So it really is, this process is sort of like the time for you to take a mirror, you to hold it out and look at yourself and see if you have the resources, if you have the mindset, if you have the desire, if you have the strength, if you have the composure, if you have the maturity, if you are responsible enough. The judge wants you to prove that, to show that those character traits that you exude or that you exemplify, and then also I guess you got to mix in what you plan to do, why it's better for you to go where you want to be as opposed to staying where you are. So I would say write yourself a letter or some bullet points and get that figured out, and then write a letter addressing the judge. It can be your first draft, or it will be your first draft, and that should help you understand what you really want from this experience, because I know you said that you're really interested in this process, and that you just really want any information that you can get. That's my advice in terms of pursuing this process and figuring it out if it's really the best thing for you, and also just having some things to keep in mind, like your options. Where will you go? What would you do? And also just doing sort of like a self-reflection and examination to see if you are ready to take that leap. I was 16 when I became an emancipated minor, but I was 26 days from turning 17. Yeah, my birthday's on the 27th of December, and I became an emancipated minor on December 1st. So, I did have people say to me, you're about to be 17 years old. Why bother? You got one more year. And it's because I truly just didn't want my sisters to tell my parents that technically my dad had guardianship over me again, because he only signed guardianship over to my legal guardian for 1 year. And after that 1 year mark, technically he was my legal guardian again. So if he wanted to go to the police, or if he wanted to come get me and bring me back to that house, he very well could have. I didn't want that to get back. I was a little paranoid about that becoming information to my parents. So I was like, you know what, let me just seal the deal and become an emancipated minor. That way my temporary legal guardian doesn't control me per se, and neither do my parents. However, like I mentioned earlier, I stayed with her afterwards. I stayed in that home for an additional year and a half, or yeah, an additional year and a half. So she, in a sense, still kind of did have control over me. And that speaks to what I was saying earlier about, ultimately wanting your own independence and seeking that to truly reach your potential in this world. You'll get there though, and it's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be within a year. I know on social media we see the aftermath, we see the end results of what people are doing behind closed doors for years and for hours and for weeks. So um, that's just some more food for thought. Going back to your letter, you did mention the emotional abuse and the trauma, and that's really, really important, because when a place starts to become so toxic that you not only suffer while you're there physically, but then you suffer while you're there mentally, that's when you really do have to start turning inward and saying, is this healthy for me? Is this okay? Am I really safe here? Am I really able to thrive here? When it comes to trauma, that's really important because traumatic energy stays with you for so long. I've got so much traumatic energy from my experiences from when I was a young kid. I know, like, experiencing Hurricane Katrina, I still have a little bit of traumatic energy from just hearing the earth rumbling and what I saw when we opened the doors and went outside. Like, I will never forget the way I shook from within, seeing what I saw. And so when we fast forward to now, living up here in the Midwest, when I hear lightning, when I hear thunder, when I hear the earth rumbling, it really is uncomfortable for me. I don't like it at all. I get very, very physically uncomfortable, and I definitely believe that that's the traumatic energy that just hasn't been released. Trauma is real, trauma is important, and if you're experiencing abuse and being traumatized, I definitely believe that that's worth mentioning to the judge. Now, with that, you do have to be aware of something that my lawyers pointed out to me, which is that if you have siblings, or if you just share too much, there is a chance that the judge may want to have an investigation, might want DCFS and what have you, or CPS. I don't know what it is down in Florida. But they might want the Department of Children and Family Services to investigate your family before proceeding with this process. You can ask your lawyers if that's something that they would actually do, or you can ask them what the odds are that the judge would actually investigate, especially when you talk about abuse and trauma, because those are serious allegations and serious words, and when it comes to the court of law. But I think that if that's what you're experiencing, it's worth looking into different things in different places that you could go. I would figure out what shelters exist. I know that up here, we are fortunate enough to have a shelter that has a program that helps you get into a renting program. I don't know how to explain it because I didn't ever go through with it. I didn't ever go to the shelter, but I was informed of this place, and they have a program where you can start putting money towards a place. You can start renting a place, and then eventually, like, that will become your apartment. Like, you'll pay off something. I don't know. And you can do that with homes too. I know out here we have a rent to own homes program, and it's similar. I don't think I explained it all that well, but you should do some research and figure out what kind of programs exist for you, just so you know what options you have. And then that's where the mental conversation of, am I ready? Am I willing to take the risks? Am I willing to be out here looking bogus sometimes? Am I willing to be out here not being connected to where I've been, and not really being firm on where I'm going, but trusting where I am and trusting the process? It's like you got to have that security in yourself before you take that leap, girl. Okay? I mean, not all of us do, but it helps. It helps if you have that conversation with yourself, sort of. And you said that you don't feel uncomfortable with your parents because of the control factor. I know about that. I grew up with some very Caribbean parents. I had a very Caribbean upbringing once I was reunited with my parents. So I understand. It's very difficult living with them, you say, and I cannot live like this or grow as a person like this, and I need to change how I live. I'm glad that you understand that you cannot grow that way, but I want you to also look around and see what ways have you grown. I'm sorry about that notification. What ways have you grown? What ways have you persevered throughout it all? I understand that you said that it's difficult. Listen, life is very difficult. Every single chapter in your life is going to come with difficulties that are only going to prepare you for the next difficulties, because it's just about seeing what level you can get to, I suppose. So when you talk about it being difficult, just in case your parents try to block this emancipation thing, what ways can you help yourself? If you try to get a job, will they support that? If you get involved in after school activities. Can you do that? I wasn't allowed to do after school activities. I had to go home and come straight back so I could take care of my younger siblings. So, I didn't have the opportunity to really escape my parents and what have you. If you have that opportunity, I would say while you're saving up money for your job, get involved in something. Go get involved with poetry, get involved with something that serves as an outlet for you. And you go on to say that you are willing to work for this and buy a car with your earnings and live away from your parents and aware of the financial affairs that come along with being an adult so young. Listen, something else is that you won't be an adult. I became an emancipated minor when I was 16 years old, and I definitely still felt 12. I have a very old soul, so mentally I would say my age is very much older than what I really am, or it's higher than what it really is. But I wouldn't say that signing that document and carrying it around in my wallet for those years made me an adult, and it's not going to make you an adult. You're not going to be out here signing leases and what have you. Most likely, you're still going to be a kid. You're still going to be going through those really awkward, insecure phases. You're still going to be pondering what you're doing, thinking that you have it all figured out, only to figure out that you really don't. But I'm glad that you're willing to work for this. I just want you to know that it's not going to be like it's just not going to be what you think it's going to be. You're going to take some left turns and some right turns, and it's in those moments that you really figure out who you are and that you figure out what you're living for, because you'll be tested. You'll be stripped of what you've been dependent on, and you'll be tested. But if you're willing to work for it, like you say, then I think that you'll be A-okay. And you ended up by saying you're really sorry about asking all these questions and trying to be a special case. You are a special case. You are a special. And I think you're starting to realize that. And that's why you're looking around and you're saying, I don't belong here. Props to you for figuring that out as soon as you have. And don't apologize for that. And one more thing, when it comes to your lawyers, search for some pro bono lawyers. Now listen, when somebody told me to do that, I didn't know what the hell pro bono was. I know how to spell that. Pro bono, if you don't know, is Pro space BONO. 2 words, pro bono. Search pro bono lawyers in my area. That's pretty important because I don't know about you, but I did not have any money to pay for lawyers. So I searched for pro bono lawyers and found a law firm that I was able to work with, and they've helped me with other things. They helped me get my files back from the Department of Children and Family Services when I was taken away, something that I wasn't sure that I would ever be able to do. And yeah, so you'll be surprised like what you'll find if you find anything at all. So I hope that my feedback and my answers to your questions are helpful in your journey. Feel free to let me know how things go, and if you have more questions in response to my answers, then feel free to send me another email. You can just respond to the one that you sent me, and I'll send you this link so you know when this is up. I just figured it would be easier to verbally respond to you as opposed to writing an essay to you. But thank you for writing me and letting me know about your journey, and to everybody else in the comment section under my other videos, which if you haven't seen them already, you might want to check out some of those and talk to some of those people. To everybody else, you guys feel free to write your questions to me as well. I know I typically don't respond to my comments right away, and it's because I don't get the notifications and stuff right away. But I appreciate that you guys are talking to one another and that you're letting me know about your journey. I think it's pretty cool to know other people are out here trying to be other like kids. You guys are really young, but you're very empowered, and you have that kind of energy and that attitude that says take charge, that says stand up for something, that says live for a cause, find a purpose, don't just be here. And I think that that's really important. That's a really good attitude to have. I think you all should be proud of yourselves. for being aware, for being introspective. Not everybody is, and it's not to say that I'm better than the people who don't have those traits. It's just to understand that that is a skill. You may not be able to draw, you may not be able to dance, you may not be the most sociable person, but to have that innate ability to analyze your surroundings, analyze your circumstances, and just by turning inward, you can figure out that you need to turn left down this road, or, to have such a strong intuition, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and know that there is something out there that's better for you. That's a skill that's going to help you all throughout your life. So it's a pretty good thing to be proud of. And on that note, I will say once again to you, dear friend, thank you for writing in. You have turned this into a segment called Hey Starlini. So thank you for the idea. And yes, to everybody else, if you do have questions, you can write to me as well. Buenas noches, mis amigos. Take care.